similar recipe to it where you have some dead cards against every deck game one, or sort of inefficient cards, and you can clean that up in the post-board games.
Well, we're going to see how it goes. Koenig has his opening 7. He's going to keep. Going to start with the Taxing Probe against Lossett. The second to lay his hand out. You see a Sensei's Divine Top on the top. A couple white-bordered planes, too. He says, why don't you spread those out? There's a Volcanic Island, Arid Mesa, Caracas. So he must know what his opponent's playing. A Flusterstorm and a Flooded Strand.
That is a stinky hand.
Yeah, not stinky if you know what you're playing against. That's for sure.
Well,
not stinky at all.
He's this hand's very exposed to sneak attack. Has some game against show and tell. So Ryan taking down the contents of Joe's hand. Draw off the Gataxian Probe.
So there's a Misty Rainforest. Sacrifice that. Gonna go down to 17, Will Koenig.
Finds a Volcanic Island.
Knows he doesn't have to play around or against Wasteland. So you can just go get the non-basics this go around.
And Joe's reputation sort of precedes him at this point if you're a player in the area. So,
yeah.
You know you're probably in a Wasteland free match.
Yeah. So there's that. Here is Preordained to start the show. So 1 and 2. You see an island and looks like a Scalding Tarn for the 2 cards. Also Sneak Attack already in Koenig's hand. So 1 on top, 1 on bottom. Draw a card. And it's a Scalding Tarn. And there's a Lotus Petal. And pass it back.
So a lot of setup for Koenig on the first turn.
There's a Volcanic Island from the set and just says, boring stuff, pass it back.
Spell Pierce the draw for Koenig.
It could end up being pretty relevant here. Just going to pass the turn back. 1 second to draw his card. Shifts it to the back of me. It looks like Jason the Mind Sculptor was one of his 2 draw steps so far here.
And it looks like his second draw step was a land, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. Here's a Plains. There's a top. Going to resolve. Pass the turn back. Brainstorm is going to happen here. It looks like on the end steps. So hit 1, 2, and 3. There's a Gristlebrand over there at Koenig's hand already, too. You see a Ponder, Volcanic Island, and another Brainstorm off of this Brainstorm. So we'll see what 2 cards he puts back.
And remember, the makeup of Joe's hand on the first turn was he had some protection against show and tell, but no protection against sneak attack. Koenig with the Lotus Petal could threaten to have it in play as early as next turn. Looks like Ryan's looking to put back some cantrips.
Gonna sack that fetch land? He's not. A little surprised.
Oh, cantrips are pretty powerful. I'm surprised he had nothing in his hand there that he wants to shuffle away.
Yeah. Maybe he just wants to keep Brainstorm, I guess.
It's a good insurance policy in case something goes awry this turn as a way to reassemble.
So he can sacrifice his turn, get an island out of his deck, shuffle up, and we'll see exactly how he's going to start this turn off. Is he going to put the pedal to the metal? He has brought Sneak Attack forward.
I think this is a really good spot to test the waters if you're Koenig.
There's 4 mana. How about a red enchantment?
Joe, as we know, have not drawn an answer, but he does have a top in play. Which gives him 3 looks at a Force of Will.
See swords. Brought a blue card to the back. Got an island in there too. Looks like that's okay. Just pass the turn back. So now you're a little bit scared because there's just a sneak attack just staring you in the face, threatening to do something ridiculous next turn.
Joe has found Vendilion Click, so
that's
not a bad draw for Joe if Ryan is on exactly 1 creature to sneak into play. Then Joe can strip that out of his hand. You can also see the upside from Ryan's perspective of keeping a cantrip left over in his hand, so he has more shots to reassemble in case Joe had some answer.
Joe says Vendilion Click right now. You need to try to get the creature out of your hand, assuming that there is one over there. So let's take a look. You see a hand of Spell Pierce, Gristlebrand, a Fetch Land, and a Brainstorm that we knew about.
So almost certainly Gristlebrand is going to the bottom here.
So Click's going to draw 1. Click will put the card to the bottom, give him 1. 2 for the draw step, 3 more from Brainstorm. So 5 shots at it, basically.
Yeah. Plus potentially
5 minimum.
Plus potentially other cantrips that you can find through the Brainstorm. And Joe has a lot of draws to avoid here.
Ancient Tomb is the first draw. Second draw is Force of Will. All right. Brainstorm. Did we fade draws 3, 4, and 5? Oh my goodness.
Well, there's Ponder.
There's a Ponder. Okay, so we're not out of the woods yet.
So we got a redraw.
Yep. But well, there's a. Okay, there's no fetch line right now. Hey, there's fetch line. Never mind.
Yeah,
I'll take it back. Yeah, it's got the Tarn. All right, so there is a Tarn.
So we have
sacrifice.
Minimum 4 redraws through this Ponder.
So potential look at 9 cards this turn. Get another Volcanic Island out. Shuffling furiously. Can Koenig find an Emrakul or a Gristlebrand and try to put this one away? All right. Ponder time. 1, 2, 3. Preordained probe.
So some redraws.
Yes. Now, do you take the mystery card here? Because let's say you keep preordain. You put the other 2 back, then you preordain the 2 cards to the bottom. So I think it's just better to shuffle, right? Oh, actually no, because he can go probe. Yeah, okay. So what he can do is go probe, preordains on top, and then he gets to see 1 card that he knows about, and then a new one for the preordained scry.
Yeah.
And if he has to put those both to the bottom, then he gets another new card.
Yeah. Okay. He has a redraw.
Yeah. Exactly what you said. So now there's preordained. Now we're gonna cast this one.
And Joe's just sitting here, just
1, 2, misdirection.
Either of those will do.
And a mystery card. Oh my goodness.
And
he missed them all.
play goes on.
Unbelievable.
It is worth noting that, we're still in a holding pattern here to some degree. If Joe runs out his Jace here, it gets hit by Spell Pierce. He only has a Fluster Storm for cover, and so it's not like Ryan's fizzled by any stretch. He still has a sneak attack in play.
He still has draw steps.
Still has his draw steps.
He did take some damage to do all that stuff, though. That's the other thing. And there's a Caracas now.
So we can start trying to set up Caracas
with a Vendilion Click. Yeah.
Although that's a tough slog here, as Ryan has enough red mana to activate his. SpaghettiOs.
Oh, how things have changed. I will activate Sneak Attack. I couldn't miss forever, Joe. Sorry.
And he has a second red mana, so even if Joe responds by Caracasing the click and clicking in response to the Sneak Attack, Ryan can simply reactivate Sneak Attack. And
the big question here is, does Ryan know that trick? I think that's what Joe's thinking to himself. Is does he know that trick?
Ryan has a pretty good rules knowledge from my experience playing with him as a local player.
Let's see Lossett. Considering that Vendilion Click play of bouncing with his own Caracas and Vendilion in response to the Sneak Attack activation, but as you mentioned, Ryan has 2 more Volcanic Islands and that Lotus Petal too that can generate red mana to just say, all right, respond, Sneak Attack again.
So Joe, all right, he's going to let it happen.
Hello.
What's going on, everyone?
Yeah. What's up, dude?
Joe has a Caracas here that he can use to stop the Emrakul before combat, but again, Ryan can just use an extra red mana to sneak attack it back into play again.
It's kind of funny because I think the big problem here is the Force of Will that Ryan has in his hand, because what Joe could do is say, all right, bounce my Vendilion Click and float mana, let Annihilator resolve, and then replay the click. But then Ryan's just going to go, all right, Force of Will that. And yeah, that's exactly what Joe's going to do. He's going to float the mana, sacrifice to the Annihilator. You can draw a card at the top, too.
Top goes on top.
A little bit awkward if that was a turn. I guess maybe he knew a top card was deck, but that would have Terminus would have been a touch awkward. And Joe says, all right, 1 second.
Are we saying that there's been a pass on the... Okay.
No. Okay.
I
think what Joe's saying is I'm not passing phase yet. What I am going to do, I'm going to cast Vendilion Click. And what Ryan is going to do, I believe, is go Force of Will this immediately.
This feels like a pretty good spot to just... He can even hard cast Force of Will, leave himself with a Spell Pierce.
Puts him down to 8, but 8's not 0, so there is a hard cast Force of Will. Get that out of here. So there that goes. Emrakul's going to put Lossett down to 4. And he also has no permanents. And shuffle them all back in is what Koening's going to do.
So the game actually isn't over yet, but it's a race for Joe to reassemble his board, take control of the game, and eventually kill Ryan before Ryan finds one of his creatures.
Yes.
Ryan is obviously heavily favored here.
Yes. There's a Flooded Strand. So Joe's going to start by sacrificing this and going down to 3. 3, 3, 3.
And Divining Top, and I think this is going to be worth a Spell Pierce.
Yeah, I agree.
I like the Spell Pierce here. With Joe so, light on total cards and mana, that top would be a valuable piece in him reassembling a hand to try to fight through this. So
it's time to fade the world. Nope.
Oh.
Yeah, this. And kill you.
Yep.
All right, so Ryan Koening's going to win game number 1 here between Sneak and Show and Blue White Miracle. Joe Lossett back against the wall. You see Koenig is 6-2, Lossett sitting at 6-1-1. Again, we're not sure if Joe can make top 8. If things do break his way, however, it looks like he'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's not surprising for me to see Joe lose the first game here. Like I said, I think there's probably a lot of matchups in the room where Joe is slightly behind in game 1.
Yeah.
But this deck makes very good use of the full 75.
Yeah.
And you have to play some amount of dead cards in every matchup because Legacy is such a wide field.
Yep.
So many things you need to anticipate for. But in the sideboard games, you can be much more surgical.
Speaking of the sideboard, I know you have it in front of you, so how's he going to change his deck to a shore-up matchup like this, which is very common nowadays in Legacy?
Well, he has a red splash in the deck off of Volcanic Islands for 2 copies of Red Elemental Blast and a Pyroblast in the sideboard. Expect those to come in. The additional Flusterstorm, a Pithing Needle, and Engineered Explosives. Sorry, not Engineered Explosives, rather, but a Terminus, a Needle, a Venser, Wear Tear. He has a lot of cards to fight over spells and to fight over the permanent sneak attack. I expect to see all of those come in with him shaving out his Rest in Peace, his 3 copies of Swords to Plowshares, and maybe a couple other of his more fidgety pieces. Maybe Counterbalance is not very good in this matchup.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, is how good exactly is Counterbalance? Because it's a great, obviously, countering the cantrips. There's certainly something to be said for that, but, and when you're on the play, you can just go top Counterbalance and start countering those cantrips like crazy, which Sneak and Show needs to actually assemble things, but there are draws that Sneak and Show has where they don't need any of the cantrips at all.
Yeah, so he has a lot of powerful cards to bring in. He has a couple obvious cuts, and then after that, I think it's some amount of shaving needs to happen.
Take a look at Koenig's side here. 2 Blood Moons, 2 Through the Breach, 2 Defense Grid, 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Pyroclasm, 2 Pyroblast, and 2 Echoing Truth. Blood Moon, we know one thing about Joe. His basic count is high.
Yes, even with a red splash, he's found a lot of ways to play. He's found a way to play 4 islands and 2 plains.
Yeah.
Joe traditionally plays very basic land heavy, and so Blood Moon not at its best here.
You see the 2 copies of Through the Breach, so that'll give him redundant effects to go on with those 4 sneak attacks and 4 show and tells. If Koenig decides he wants to do that. Defense Grid, a card that was really popular in Sneak and Show, but not as popular anymore, saying that it just doesn't ever really work the way that I want it to. You would think with a deck that has 6, in between 4 to 6 Soul Ring lands, the Defense Grid would be great against a counter spell based strategy, but doesn't really end up being the case that often.
Well, a lot of the anti-combo decks in Legacy play a mixture of hand disruption and counter spells. So relying solely on Leyline of Sanctity or Defense Grid, things that answer one thing but not the other, is somewhat risky. Against Joe, however, Defense Grid is great because almost everything that he's doing to interact with Ryan involves reacting on Ryan's turn.
Sure.
Mostly with counter spells, a little bit of a disenchant effect. So Defense Grid has fallen out of flavor, but I think Ryan will be happy to have him in his sideboard in this matchup.
And the only other thing that really does interest me is Pyroblast, but, again, how great is Pyroblast in this matchup? I guess it does counter a card like Vendilion Click, does counter a card like Venser, Counterbalance, if you deem that necessary, but I'm not sure if that's exactly where you want to be here, having a lot of reactive cards.
Yeah, it also helps you push through some things, and some of Joe's best cards in the matchup are blue cards like Venser, or Vendilion Click, or Jace.
Okay.
So I think it's worth having a couple Pyroblasts. It's not the most efficient thing in the world, and I definitely agree that you don't want to be too counterspell heavy, but so many of Joe's best cards are blue. I feel like having a couple Pyroblasts is well worth it.
Okay. Well, we'll see how the 2 players do end up sideboarding here as Joe's taking a look at his opening hand. I don't think he's too thrilled with this. He shows a Mystic Gate.
It's a 1 land. It's all counterspells and 1 Mystic Gate as a land.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
I like it.
There's an island, and there is a ponder.
Gristlebrand, Show and Tell, and Volcanic Island.
Not bad.
Not shabby.
Not bad at all. So 3 cards. And he's going to. Ooh.
Okay.
Jeez, his hand must be good if he's shuffling that away. Yikes. I love this keep.
I do too. Joe, you might as well just let it rip, you know?
What's the worst land he can roll off right now? Is there a bad one?
No, they're all fine.
Okay, they all turn it on, right?
Yeah, no, there's a second Mystic Gate.
Oh,
Sorry.
boy. The stories we're about to tell. Draws a Force of Will.
Naturally.
Yep. Your turn. There's a Preordain. 1 and 2. 2 lands. Gonna put Volcanic on top, Island on the bottom. Volcanic, come on to the grip. Into play. Pass a turn. Joe, bang.
Bang.
Arid Mesa right off the top. Let's play some Magic, shall we?
All right. Joe's got a really powerful grip of reactive cards.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's going to start off with Counterbalance.
Is he willing to put the shields down, though? I mean, he has a bunch of Force of Wills to protect himself. He may not want to run this into a Spell Pierce or a Pyroblast, but when you're missing land drops, you know, sometimes you just kind of have to use your mana, but Joe's going to hang back and wait for a little bit.
There's an island. Well, Koenig has a Blood Moon here. That's probably worth fighting over.
And awkwardly enough, Joe's fetch land does not allow him to get a basic island.
Yeah.
So he kind of needs to fight over this.
Unless he gets some Tundra or Plains.
But with so much, you know, the basic Plains feels like a pretty big cost here. I know Joe, I've seen his hand, there's a red card in it, so Volcanic seems like a good place to start.
Okay. So Blood Moon on the stack. But it doesn't look like that's going to resolve today. You see Spell Pierce there brought to the front. And he's probably going to add blue with his gate. Yeah. Now there's Pierce. All right, get that Blood Moon out of here.
And I think Koenig's probably happy with that exchange. Blood Moon not at its best necessarily against Joe, and every little piece of permission that you're able to squeeze out of Joe's hand makes the eventual process of going off a lot easier.
Yeah. So here's Counterbalance from Lossett, and that's going to resolve. But no top out there, so now it's time for a fun Counterbalance.
Yeah.
My favorite kind.
The blind Counterbalance.
Yeah. So, Show and Tell puts on the stack. First things first. Ha! Brainstorm.
Yep. Brainstorm on top. Although Brainstorm, not a bad draw for Joe next turn.
Yeah.
Can help him find land drops potentially if he wants to go that route. Also gives him a lot of flexibility with the Counterbalance.
I kind of like this now. So he's got Venser in his hand. Huh? You want to play a little game? He can counter it or he can let it resolve.
The risk, of course, if he's Show and Telling in Gristlebrand than your Venser is.
Not as good.
You would rather have fun over this. So
yes.
There's a guessing game that Joe has to go through in his head right now. If it's Sneak Attack or if it's Emrakul, it's excellent.
Oh, yes. He's letting it resolve. This is awesome.
And it looks like...
Pick her up.
Sorry. Joe rewarded for his gamble. Now, both with the one land hand that he kept and by guessing that it would be Emrakul or Sneak Attack and not Gristlebrand.
You know what they say.
I don't.
No gamble, no future.
Sure.
That's what they say. Now, Joe's got Brainstorm in his hand. I like what he's going to do with Brainstorm here. He's actually going to use it as a way to make his Counterbalance counterspell.
Yes.
Yeah, instead of trying to hit a land drop and doing it in his main phase and sacking with the fetch land, all that fun stuff, he's just going to go, you know what, Brainstorm, put a 3 back on top or something of that nature. As here's a Show and Tell yet again from Koenig.
Counterbalance is on the stack.
Beast Storm.
Adds 2 blue and Brainstorms. Ideally, we'd like to find a 3 to counter for free, but if not, no big deal. Still plenty of Force of Wills to fight over this.
Drew a Spell Pierce, too.
Ooh.
So good thing he played that blue mana.
A naughty Nelson.
Yeah. Fidelity click on top, too, so okay, that's going to go. Pass the turn back.
Joe firmly in the driver's seat now. I mean, he might just beat Ryan to death with this Venser.
Well, and he does have a land, too, for the Vendilion click as well, so there's a basic Plains. Seriously, the ugliest Plains in the history of the world.
Those were the Plains from my childhood.
That does not matter to me.
There's some nostalgia for me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not defending it. I don't want to give the impression that I'm defending it.
I started in Ice Age, baby. I started with Woolly Mammoth and Friends. There is a Lotus Petal. So now we're getting into sneak attack range. Looks like this might just be a pass, though.
Well, Joe has to determine, again, what he wants to do about this.
Going to start with a cantrip? All right. How about a counterbalance activation? Maybe, maybe not. Joe knows, excuse me, what's on top of his deck. So he doesn't want to give away free information. Scalding Tarn is what it looks like off this Preordain. Koening doesn't look thrilled with these two cards. Don't think he needs any more lands, honestly. Maybe he needs one more at most this game. So he is going to take one of them. This makes it so that he can actually play Sneak Attack and then activate it all in the same turn, because there's a Scalding Tarn. You see his hand right now, too. Double Sneak Attack, Gristlebrand, Spell Pierce. And we'll see everything, just in case I did miss one, because now Vendilion Click is here.
And we see a hand of...
the Emrakul, too.
So, the plus side for Ryan is that his hand's pretty redundant. There's not one piece that Joe can take away because he has redundant sneak attacks and redundant creatures to sneak attack into play. The downside is that it seems Joe's going to be able, through the force of will and the counterbalance, to fight through all this stuff. So.
Sure. So Joe's trying to figure out exactly what he's supposed to take. Do you take anything here?
I think there's a really good argument to take sneak attack because it requires so many resources for Ryan to fire off a sneak attack.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just going to take one of them.
So it makes it so that you only have to worry about one sneak attack as opposed to two. Koenig drew a Taxing Probe. It's a pretty good draw. As Lossett's going to draw a card, drew a Force of Will, going to come in for 5. Going to knock Koenig down to 11. And that fetch land, if it does get sacrificed, that puts Koenig down to 10. That puts him on a 2-turn instead of a 3-turn.
There's just so few draws in Koenig's deck that make a difference at this point if you leave him with only the one sneak attack.
Sure.
You have, with all your permission, you have that one covered. You have a Pyroblast in your hand covering you against Show and Tell. It's just, it's really hard to imagine Ryan being able to cobble together a hand that can go off in the amount of time that Joe is giving him, given the amount of pressure that Koenig is under.
So Koenig is going to sacrifice that Scalding Tarn, going to put himself down to 10. So he's on the 2-turn clock from the 2 legendary blue creatures. Going to search out a Volcanic Island.
Koenig has really stepped up his beard game since I've gotten to know him, too.
It's a good beard.
Yeah, it used to not be like this.
Yeah, that's a healthy beard.
Yeah. That is something that takes time. It's not on
it's why I respect his beard quite a bit. Not on the level of Chris Van Meter right now.
No.
He's certainly got some work to do to get there.
Yeah, don't we all?
But overall, respectable. I give it a B. A healthy B.
Koenig draws another Gristlebrand.
Taxing Pro, gonna go down to 8.
Joe has to decide what he wants to do about this, if anything. He can counter it for free with his Divining Top, but the Divining Top might be floating something
of relevance.
Yeah.
And he knows that Koenig has a Spell Pierce in the grip. I believe he knows that. Another Force of Will there.
So it's just an issue of what's the damage that Koenig can do with a blind card off the top of his deck? Is it worth doing anything about this?
You see, Joe's going to consider all his options before moving forward. Puts those cards back. There's a 1. It's a Fluster Storm. That's actually a pretty good one to show.
Yep.
And Koenig says, all right, I got to get moving. Sneak attack. Joe, 2, 3, Jace.
Yep, just dealing with this Divining Top
the
counterbalance.
nuts! That's the turn back. I'll quickly untap with Lossett. You know he's already got a draw. He's going to start by topping on upkeep. Probably wants to keep a 4 up there.
Worth noting here is that Joe still has 2 copies of Force of Will in his hand.
Yeah, hasn't had to use one yet. He's got the wall up, man. He has the wall up. He could put his hand on the table right now and Koenig would concede. Koenig will draw a card. It's a sneak attack.
Ooh, that's pretty lucky.
I'll show you yours.
All
You show me mine.
All right, well, I guess we'll probably be...
Yep, spin. Make sure I didn't set it bad. It's set good. There's Jace again. And that's going to do it. So, Joe Lossett's going to win game number 2 here with Blue White Miracles versus Ryan Koenig playing Sneak and Show.
His build seems a lot more lean in the post-board games.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. No argument there, man. No argument there.
So, if you're in Koenig C, do you change your configuration anymore? Any differently, play versus draw?
Nah, not for me. I think you just got to keep it the same. Just like, I don't know, like I feel like Joe's deck is just, as you mentioned, really tough to beat after sideboard. I don't think there's a lot you can change. I don't think there's really a lot of gambles you can take either. Again, I don't really love defense grid after sideboard, but I mean, I guess like if, that was a really heavy Force of Will, Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce type game from Lossett, so maybe defense grid could do some work. I still like Blood Moon.
Sure. Well, the question is, with the defense grid, if not here, then when? I mean, if you put this card in your sideboard, you're now playing against a deck with, I don't know, rough guess of 12 counter spells against you in a post-board game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not bringing in the defense grid here, I don't know what those slots are doing in your sideboard.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And that's why, player like Huey Jensen and the guys who played Sneak and Show at the Invitational, BBD, Brad, Jerry, they moved away from defense grid. They moved towards a card like Swan Song because it actually just does more.
Yes.
Yeah, than defense grid does.
You can also only afford to bring in so many cards where if you flood out, if you're missing a piece, if you draw multiple copies of them, whatever, they aren't that productive.
Yeah.
Defense grid fails that test, whereas Swan Song definitely passes.
Agreed.
If you draw 2 defense grids, sometimes that can be good if your opponent's all on counter spells. Oftentimes, you're going to be in a spot where you're just missing pieces because 2 of the cards you've drawn early on are defense grids.
Yeah.
2 Swan Songs are actually great at it.
They're good.
Yeah, actually quite powerful at helping you go off.
Love Swan Song. I love Swan Song. I just want that card to see more play. I think it's just a really cool card.
It is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's a little weird to me that they put it in the same set with a Null because they feel like they serve kind of similar purposes. They
Sure.
feel like kind of similar designs in a lot of respects,
Sure.
but it is neat.
You make a good point there. Hadn't considered that. So both players are going to shuffle up for game number 3. Last one, best one. And we'll see if things do break Lossett's way if he can win this game. First of all, that's step 1.
Yes.
And then, I got a bad feeling we're going to be announcing Joe Lossett 9th place.
Yeah, especially with this pair down. I mean, this is really rough in a number of ways. He's already, it looks like he's on the bad side of the bubble to begin with, and now this will do damage to his tiebreakers, even if he is to win this match.
Yeah. That's how it feels to me, too. But we'll see. We'll see. We're not positive.
No. We're not mathematicians.
No, I'm not. If only.
And really, as straight-laced and as much as Joe kind of colors inside the line how he plays, I really like that Mystic Gate keep.
I love it.
Just, you've come this far, just snap it off.
Yeah.
Big fan.
It's a nice YOLO. Take a look at things here.
I think Joe has the one Mystic Gate again.
Well, if you did it once, you got to do it again.
He has 2 force. It looks like at least a Force of Will.
He's got a counterbalance,
a brainstorm, a click. It's the Mystic Gate again.
What's the problem?
Yeah, it was good the first time.
We won the last time.
Very easily, in fact. We had 2 Force of Wills left over.
This time we're on the draw.
So many more shots to draw a land.
Yeah.
You have literally twice as many draw steps to draw a land as you did last.
Bluff. This is the bluff. He's reeling him in as Lossett. He knows he's keeping.
There's no chance. This is for us and for you at home.
Yeah.
It's Hollywooding
he
right now.
knows he's keeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh!
Oh, come on, Joe.
He tricked us.
Yeah. How do you throw that away?
Well, it's possible that hand's just worse than the one that he had before,
Yeah,
right?
Probably. I want to keep it.
Let's
do this.
Yeah, I think the odds that he just dies on the second or third turn is much higher with that hand than the first hand.
Yeah, probably.
So.
But it's not about that. It's about that YOLO.
You're on camera, just do it for the people at home.
Yes. Yes. See, now you know.
You don't need to be super conservative, starchy counterbalance guy. You can loosen it up a little bit.
I would have snapped it off. I wouldn't even have thought twice about it either. Come and get it.
All right, well, it looks like he's drawing some lands and some counter spells.
Oh, real hand.
Yeah, tough guy.
Here's a low spell. Pass the turn back. In a second to draw his card. Got an Arid Mace over there. Spell Pierce too.
Is that a misdirection?
He's got a Caracas in hand. What's that draw step? Brainstorm for Koenig. There's a Scalding Tarn. Pass the turn back. So he's got a good Brainstorm available to him moving forward. Lossett draws a card. Slides to the back of the hand. Caracas going to come on down.
I believe he drew Vendilion Click.
I think so. Pretty good with that land he just played.
So a superb mulligan to 6 by the looks of things for Lossett. Not that that forgives his decision to mulligan in the first place.
Definitely not.
But
as soon as this match is over and we go to break, I'm going to demand an explanation.
Yeah, I hate feeling like I'm rewarding bad behavior, but
Brainstorm here from Koenig on the unstep. Gataxian Probe, Lotus Petal, and land cards that are brought to his hand.
Koenig's hand appears to be a little land heavy, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him get rid of some of this mana.
Yeah.
And shuffle here at the end of the turn. He's thumbing a Mystery Reinforce and a Petal.
I'm going to put the basic back from the fetch, just because if I draw another Brainstorm, I have another fetch land already.
Joe, atypical of a lot of non-Death and Taxes decks, has 2 copies of Caracas in his deck.
Sure.
I'm sure at this point it's just a concession to the Sneak and Show matchup.
Yeah, I mean, with what Sneak and Show did at the Invitational, it's being just so big, and the players who played it doing so well. You do have to make adjustments to your deck moving forward, because I expect Sneak and Show to really just become a lot more popular. Really tough deck. All right, so the Brainstorm happens.
He's keeping one of them. Well, he was debating for a long time between.
He's actually keeping both of them.
Hungering for mana, I guess.
All right, hands up. Pith Needle, Jace, Spell Pierce, Vendilion Click, Brainstorm. I think that's that actual counter spell in the middle?
Perhaps Misdirection?
Okay.
Another blue reactive card.
Yes. All those counters.
Although, actually kind of light on real defenses here.
Yep. Draw a card. So cards that he put back. He redrew, did Koenig. There's an island. And there's a Petal. Just pass the turn back.
Yep.
So he feels like he needs the lands to be able to push through Spell Piercing, friends.
Well, he certainly does, right? He actually needs to set up enough to go off over the top of Caracas, too.
Yeah, that too.
So he needs mana, and he needs a lot of red mana, too, so you can understand why he wanted to keep these Petals and fetch lands.
So Lossett's going to sacrifice that Arid Mesa, go get himself a Volcanic Island, so if he does draw Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast, he can actually cast it. Presents his deck over. So you see the clock in the middle there. We're winding down to about 17 minutes left. Here's a Brainstorm on the end step. Should be plenty of time for these 2 players to finish. Force of Will among friends that are drawn.
It looks like he's also drawn an island, which frees up a lot of his hand, but he won't have a 4th land drop for a while, by the looks of things.
Yeah.
But he has a lot of tools to protect himself now that he's found a white source of mana, a blue source of mana. That allows him to pass, protect himself with counter spells, click at the end of Brian's turn if Brian doesn't present anything, and start to get his beat on.
So very careful Brainstorm here. Going to set up the rest of the stages of this game is what this instant is going to do.
Yeah, Joe has to decide which card he wants to strand 2 turns from now. The Force of Will, he may have to cast his implications because he may want to keep the worst card in his hand as Force of Will fodder. And so, even though he's not shuffling his deck, this Brainstorm has some pretty broad implications, which is why it's taking Joe a while.
Completely understandable. Island going to come into play, the land that you did mention. All right, Koenig's going to sacrifice Scalding Tarn on the end step.
I assume we're going to get a Volcanic here. Again, Ryan needs a lot of red mana, not just mana.
See him sliding by just about everything. He's almost go by 2 through the breach, so he does have those after sideboard. Not too surprising to see him board those in.
Yep.
But Caracas will do a nice job of invalidating that card.
Show and Tell comes with big problems. Sneak attack, Joe has a variety of disenchants and Vencers and Python Needles and such, but through the breaches, it's permission or bust to answer that one.
Sneak attack off the top. There's a Misty. Sacrifice that, probably go get that third Volcanic.
And I think we might I think we might see some fireworks this turn if Koenig's fetching.
Yeah, I think so too.
Joe's got it covered though. He has a lot of powerful defensive measures. I think Joe might be debating about whether or not he wants to click in response to this fetch land. By sacking right away, it's sort of a declaration by Ryan that I'm about to go for it. And so there's some possibility that Joe would want to click up front, but I like pausing here. He has a lot of counter spells. Let Ryan play into your permission, and if he doesn't do anything too threatening, then you can click at the end of the turn and see what's going on.
Yep, I'm with you on that one too. So here's a island from Koenig.
Joe's showing a lot of discipline here.
No, he's the reactive deck. No reason to move. At least not yet. All right, making his move is Koenig. Sneak attack. A second to give the old head scratch.
And you can see this is why Joe wanted to keep the Jace in his hand, even though the brainstorm didn't seem that complicated a decision. Because he's going to be stuck on 3 lands for a while. He's aware of this because he knows his draw steps. He wants to get rid of Jace and not other blue cards in his hand.
So Force of Will, removing Jace. Lossett will take 1. That'll counter it. And Koenig says that's fine. Pass the turn back. End of turn. There is Vendilion Click. So the hand of Gristlebrand, Emrakul, and Sneak Attack. I think we might see the Red Enchantment go to the bottom.
I think that makes sense, yes. Again, the Sneak Attack deck from this position doesn't have a lot of really powerful draws. Although Joe does have a Python Needle in his hand, so there is some argument for saying, yeah, you keep him.
All right.
And that's what he's going to do.
I kind of dig it, actually. Get in for 3, play Needle, name Sneak Attack.
I mean, that click is really bad for Ryan, but he's got to feel even more helpless with Joe saying, yeah, that's good. You keep those.
Now, he's also going to play a top. And does it so he can keep Spell Pierce up. I wonder if that's risky tapping the Caracas as opposed to the blue land. Attacks and probe the draw. Can actually cast this. There's misdirection Spell Pierce.
So Show and Tell is actually Show and Tell for Gristlebrand's actually quite powerful right now.
Yeah, it is. Ancient Tomb, not so much. That's going to come in. That's going to make sure that Koenig has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has 8 mana. Joe going to spin the top, knowing that he's safe because he knows the contents of Koenig's hand. Yet again, Gristlebrand, Emrakul, and Sneak Attack.
But, Joe's not out of the woods yet.
No, not at all.
Definitely has some powerful draws to him. The Caracas, assuming Joe leaves it up, is going to shut off Emrakul, but it's possible that Koenig can overpower him with Gristlebrand and the right draws.
Attack for 3, going to put Koenig down at 13. There's a land. That's kind of the key thing now, right? Where it's just Joe needs lands. As Ancient Tomb's going to come into play. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Emrakul's 15, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a counter spell. That's a big draw for Joe.
And Joe no sack of the fetch lane says, I want that counter spell. Get you for 3, put you down to 10.
Now Joe is very likely to be out of the woods.
Yeah. Going to be a pretty tough game for Koenig to win now, I think.
He needs running quality draws.
So that's going to pass the turn back, so we'll see where it starts. Force of Will, the draw.
No blue card, but Koenig with no shortage of mana.
Pass it. Joe going to spin the top. No interest in bouncing his Vendilion Click with Caracas, resetting it, and all that jazz.
I think that would be a play you would consider if his 4th land wasn't Misty Rainforest.
Okay.
But I think a shuffle with a top in this position is more valuable than looking at Koenig's hand when the odds that his hand's just non-functional is really high. Like he's not doing anything.
Yeah.
And the Sneak and Show deck has a lot of garbage in his hand at that point.
And he's going to extend the hand, so Joe Lossett is going to win this match 2-1 over Ryan Koenig.
Sorry, Ryan.
A sad, pouty lip, but Blue White Miracle is going to get the job done over Sneak and Show. Lossett's going to move on to 7-1-1, and we'll see how things break once this round is over, it feels like a 9th place to me.
Yes.
That's how it feels.
Like a Greek